right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Comics News Today. Kinda. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today, and I'm going to turn it over to Denali right here from the start to explain exactly what we're doing. All right, go ahead, man.
All right, thanks, Chester. What we were going to do, like about last week before I got sick, and something we were talking about was going to talk about comics that we're currently reading. Whether it's from our pull list or things that are kind of interesting. It's kind of a little different from the basement because we're just focusing on one property. Here's we're just saying, hey, check out these comics that we're reading because it interests us. And since we've been talking a lot of negativity with here's stuff that we don't want, here's stuff that kind of interests us, and we should kind of look at them and say, hey, look at these writers, look at these artists are doing a good job,
Hmm.
and kind of promote them to show DC and Marvels and say, we told you all this negative stuff, but let's promote the positive ones as well, because there are some positives, in there, whether it's indie or whether it's Image or whether it's Marvel or DC or any other one, and we should do that. So for
Yeah,
today's show, we're gonna just talk, you know, simply about the comics we've been enjoying or reading, are catching our interest, and if it's something that's interesting for you guys, check it up and let us know what you think as well. What we necessarily like may not be what you guys might like, but it might be something that, hey, maybe I didn't think of checking out this title, but since we talked about it, go and see if I like it, and tell the guys, hey, this comic suck, you're full of crap, or hey, this comic's cool, I'm going to continue the series.
hmm
Um,
no, it's
so that's
basically talk about what we like instead of talking about the
yeah,
things that we're joking about. Yeah,
right. So
yeah, sounds good. And of course,
uh,
other than Denali and I, we are joined by Todd Mulrooney. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited because this is something I've been talking about for a while. Let's try to steer people towards quality and
Yep.
what we think is a book that's not lacking. And maybe get some of you superhero guys off of the superhero books for a while and realize those books are just cookie cutter. You know, you could read uh, the 70s to the 80s and then the 80s to the 90s, and you realize, oh, they just rewrote what was done 10 years ago. So it's time to just go outside your box a little bit.
Hmm,
So hang with
interesting.
us.
All right. Well, we could take that. I see Jordan is over here, and I see Tank Ferret, who I've not seen in a long time, who needs to really come talk to me, is here. And it sounds like Tank Ferret has tapeworm. Wonderful. Well, how'd you get that,
well,
man?
because he's a ferret.
Yeah, that's probably why. Yeah,
Are you
uh,
serious?
that's what he
Is that
said.
serious?
That's what he
Oh
said.
God.
J-Pod Studio is here. Awesome. Ghost. Now my favorite book. Thanks, guys. Dude, that book was killer. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was really good.
Yeah. There's,
yeah.
he's got a
One.
couple others, by the way. The Wake and Joe the Barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and oh man, there was another one that was really good. Man, he's done some really good projects that if you really go in deep to them, they're just well done. They're well written. And not every issue, but the story overall is a really good story.
Mhm.
Joe the Barbarian is an excellent story, by the way.
Yeah, no, and doing shows where we're talking about certain writers and certain and their runs and stuff might be a good idea as well. But today we're going to be talking about individual book series that are going on. Keep in mind that of course we have all our links down below, and we do appreciate you guys interacting, joining, fan speak, and all that, hitting the like button, subscribing, etc., etc. But one of the things that helps us the most is hitting that share button. So if you guys could do that for us, it'd be much appreciated. But let's go ahead and jump right over into it because, like I said, today's format is very different, and we're going to be talking about, comics straightforward. So let me do this, and I'll share over here with the Hangout so everybody can see.
Right. And while you're doing that, J Pot Studio says Tokyo Ghost is now my favorite books.
Hmm.
Thanks, guys.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's what we're here to do.
Right.
And funny enough, you start with Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
And you know why it's funny? Because Grant Morrison is also the writer for Joe the Barbarian,
Yes, he is.
who's connected to Tokyo Ghost artist Sean Gordon Murphy.
That's right.
So
Well, they're all a
so
bunch of buddies that hang out with each other, and give each other work, you know. But
absolutely.
but Grant Morrison, as odd as he is, and some people don't like him, and some people don't like him. The one thing you can't say about Grant Morrison is he can't write, because he can. He's a really good writer. Um, and he is an oddball, but he's kind of that kind of oddball I like, you know. And obviously Denali agrees.
Oh yeah. He's typically an oddball. You know you're gonna go into a ride uh that, his goal is always simulating acid trips. He
No,
wants
it
you
seems to
to,
be. Yeah.
yeah, no, he said it in one of the podcasts with Kevin Smith, which I
Oh,
think
really?
it's insightful. Yeah, if you read one of his Fat Men on Batman earlier podcasts with him, he talks about, one of his goals is always to give the reader a view into my mindset, where where you want to know how a person in acid feels like on a daily basis, just read my book, and that's how they are. So it goes with a purpose that, it's always going to be trippy.
Well,
For
j-
the yeah, go ahead.
no. Just to be fair, if you're on an acid trip day to day, you're not going to be alive very long. But okay.
Wow, this guy's heavily on mushrooms and acid. So
Well, shrooms, I guess,
uh,
is yeah. Okay. I'm not going to get into a drug conversation here, Denali. You're not going to pull me in. I saw it. I saw it. I dodged it.
yeah, dodge it. Keep dodging it. You know what? Another interesting factoid, and maybe we discussed it about weeks ago, is about the Green Lanterns motto, where they're citing a thing, and it
Yeah.
kind of hit me that it's kind of like the same model of the Christian one, where they're talking about the Lord, and they're saying, you know, brightest day, um, he rose, and it has the same metric. I gotta pull up that same line, because if I put it beat by beat,
That's
it looks
that's
like
easy, dude. In brightest day and
yeah,
blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who
no,
worship evil's might beware
it's
my
like
power. Green Lantern's light.
right.
Thank
But
you.
I'm not talking about the Green Lantern motto. That's why I wasn't reciting. I'm talking about the Christian one, because if you put it that same dial reframe and everything,
Hmm.
it's exactly the same. So I'm expecting to believe that whoever made the Green Lantern used that as a basis for the Green Lantern's motto, which is kind of interesting itself. Talking about the holiday cheer and everything, since where Christmas is a celebration of Christ's birth and everything.
Oh, I see.
Um, but for the first one, this is the first run of Green Lantern. It's no longer Rebirth, since they got rid of the title around issue 34, 35 for
Hmm.
most of the series around that time. And they just been going with DC Universe. Um, we have Hal Jordan back with the ring after his return from the Jeff John and EVS era,
Yep.
and he's now becoming the police cop, and he's going to deal with wonderful things that is typical of a Green Lantern story, and a Grant Morrison story, which is going to be uh, pretty
Crazy.
funny as well. Crazy,
Yeah.
funny, but you have the total, you start reading it, and just from the first couple pages, you're already, this is a Grant Morrison book. Even if they took the name and title, you could just tell. You have him fighting mutant people. You have them, galaxy ending destruction. You have him tripping out on a desert, and you know, and he's like, "We're gonna do this and become Green Lantern." And as you're going for the first issue, you're like, "Yep, this is a Grant Morrison. He's already tripping balls, and it's the first issue. I'm afraid to see what's going to happen next, but I can't help it because it's such a good writing.
Well, Todd, what do you think about Grant Morrison doing Hal Jordan? That seems like such an odd choice, an odd combination, you know?
Um, I haven't read either of these issues. There's been 2 issues so far, and I saw this like volcano guy,
Hmm.
this volcano with shoulders and a body. And I was just like, oh my God, this is just too weird. He always does these types of
Yeah,
characters.
yeah, he does. Yeah.
And, and he does, and they do, um, whoever the artist is, he must talk them into a lot of things because they do a lot of walk-bys. Walk-bys of fringe characters who you may or may not see again that are even weirder than a guy with a volcano head. So, I don't know. This must be something that he must really communicate with artists very well to get them to buy into some of these things because he uh he loads the book up with a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah, but we are talking about things we like, and Denali likes this book, so
Yeah.
that is cool.
Yeah. And I probably will get around to reading it. I love Grant Morrison and a lot of the stuff, a lot of his past work. I just haven't read this yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to read it myself because I'm a big Hal Jordan Green Lantern fan, and I've enjoyed a lot of Grant Morrison. Not everything, but I've enjoyed a lot of his
All
stuff.
right.
So sounds like something to read for sure.
Absolutely. So just expect a typical fare of Grant Morrison. It's great. I mean, you don't see the twist. I mean, you would have to be on acid to realize the twist that comes on it. And by the end of the issue, by the last page, you're like, okay, I needed to see how he's going to go through this,
Oh,
and
Tank.
it's crazy. And I'm afraid because I want to talk about it, but I don't want to spoil it
Oh no,
either.
no, don't spoil anything. Yeah, yeah, just talk
And
about the love of it. Yeah.
yeah, but it's great. It reminds me of Animal Man. You know, a little bit of self awareness going on. It talks about prophecies, and introspection, and everything that comes from Grant Morrison just distilled in this first issue.
You know,
And I'm
and
like, go ahead.
oh no, yeah, and one of the things good is good about Grant Morrison is he will put politic in his comic all the time, and he is a liberal, but he's just a liberal. And his politic is not being coming at you; it's happening to the characters as it should be. So his guy actually will write, yeah, something that is talking about what he doesn't like in the world, and he's displaying it through his story, whether you agree or not. But he's not banging
Right.
you in the head with it. He's doing it the way you should do it. So Grant Morrison is a good example for some of these young SJW writers to, hey, take a look at what this guy's doing. He's doing what you want to do. Learn from him and do it right, because if a lot of these SJW books, if they were writing them properly, there would be we might not read them, but we wouldn't be angry about it. And of course, the other thing would be stop telling us we're all Nazis and you're going to hit us in the head with a baseball bat. That would help too, I think. But Tank Ferret says, I don't think Grant Morrison can break the character any further. So we'll see, I guess. Sounds like
Right.
some repair work to Hal Jordan. Yeah, Grant is good at what he does. And I love Hal Jordan, so and
Yeah.
that's
I mean, and when you say he can't break it, trust me, he'll find a way to break it, and then make you love him for breaking him,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
putting him back. Kind of like the Batman RP Rest in Peace series,
So yeah.
where he broke Batman, but you ended up loving him for breaking Batman because it was so weird and trippy.
Okay. Well, let's jump
Um,
over to a Todd one real quick.
sure.
And now this is interesting. I was putting up these so we could talk about them. I never heard of this at all. Todd, please introduce us to this Isola.
Isola started in Motor Crush. Motor Crush was a Brandon Fletcher, Cameron Stewart book, and so they broke up because they were going to be late on the book. They broke up the book's prologue and introduced it sort of almost like what do they call that, a backdoor pilot. So the prologue appeared broken up into like 5 issues of Motor Crush, And this is the same team. Everyone on this team, including the colorist, whose name is Michelle Anderscorn, uh, even though she goes by a weird name on everything she does, she uses one of those monikers. Um, this is the same team that brought you Gotham Academy.
Oh,
And this
really?
is a weird. The tiger right there is a queen who was cursed and turned into a tiger, and the other girl that you're looking at right here is her captain of arms. And they're trying to go to this island of Isola to undo this curse. Now, what interests me in this book was when these guys did Gotham Academy. It had such a stark, really animated look. Like there was something really different, and I just sort of gravitated toward that style. And of course, I'm a Carl Kerschel fan. I mean, he's done some things like Superman and stuff like that in his career. But I had to check this out. When they announced this, and it announced at the Image Expo. I think it was 2016, and this was one of their highlight books that they announced that day. And it finally did come out. There's a 5-issue arc that came out and then went on hiatus and comes back in January. And this is really a fantasy magic story. There's a lot of magic and the. But man, if you look at these pages, if you're into this type of thing, um, where somebody's just sort of when you granted the artwork is simple and the simple lines and stuff, but when the colorist comes in and interprets those simple lines and creates this almost dual cell shaded look, it really just
It is.
is something eye pleasant,
It is
pleasing.
pretty, man. I like the look of the pictures that I've seen. I just took this kind of cover picture and put it up, but the art does look beautiful. Junko, baby, moi kai onegaishimasu. Right. Um. Yeah. No, I thought it was beautiful looking. I just had never heard of it, dude.
That's an odd request, Chester. You want your wife to get underneath the desk?
I said no. I said moi kai onegaishimasu means do it again. No, I because I went out.
You just walked.
That didn't make it any better.
You just walked it.
No, because we went out with like a couple's night last night, and we went to this kushiage type restaurant. It was wonderful, delicious, and I don't know. I think I drank a bottle of Jack Daniels yesterday, so I have that gray pallor going on me this morning. And I need some more coffee. That was rough.
Hmm.
Had fun though. Sorry. Continue. I'm hearing a girl's voice, and it almost sounds like Dazzler, but it can't be Dazzler. Whose voice is that?
No, that is Giovanna. That's my daughter.
Oh,
Um,
Giovanna. Very nice Italian name you gave her
this
there.
this is one of those books that I would actually show her. Um, because it's a beautiful book and it's very tame when they do there is a sort of a death that happens in one of the books, or actually, well, I don't know, that girl didn't die, but
Well, thank you
but
for the
it's really done
spoilers.
very it's really done really well.
So,
It's
what's this book about? I know you've
Well,
been.
it's about a queen who's been cursed and turned into a tiger, and this girl trying
Hmm.
to get to this Isola, the island,
Hmm.
to get the curse removed, right?
yeah, it's Queen Olwyn and
Hmm.
her and Rook is the captain of arms. Yeah, and they're traveling to the island Isola in hopes of reversing the curse that transformed the queen.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to give away more than that.
Well, you shouldn't.
But if
No, no,
it's, yeah,
no.
All right. Well,
What I was getting at is like kind of like who are these characters, And I know you were talking about how the color is and a little bit about the backstory is, kind of moving on there. And I was like, well, it's awesome, but what's this story about? Kind of
they
deal.
looks like they're Asian, so it's an Asian
well,
story.
they, yeah, it's not really. I wouldn't categorize them as sort of Asian, but um, I think you were right on when you said sort of African early on. Um,
Really? Hmm,
Yeah, yeah.
I get it. Well, the
But
pictures
she
look
looks
very
Asian.
African. Well,
Yeah,
Africa
the
also
Rook
doesn't
looks.
have tigers, you know.
It doesn't.
Uh-uh. No tigers
Asia
in
Maybe you're
Minor.
Africa.
right.
Yeah, that's an Asian
Maybe you're
cat.
right.
I'm definitely right. Yeah.
There is another queen who's African in this.
Well, I think it's
I
probably a
don't want to
fantasy
assume.
world, but you don't
Yeah,
give too
Yeah,
much
definitely.
away. Yeah.
yeah.
You want to show more of it? You have any more than
Nope.
just that?
I just brought up the one thing to chat about.
That's it.
That's it. I just brought up an image so you could talk about it a little bit and move on next. We got a bunch of them to do, you know.
Okay.
Do forgive
All
us.
right.
This is the first time doing this. We're trying to figure out how we want to run this format. So you guys are all guinea pigs. Yay! And it sounds like Tank
Guinea pig.
and his tapeworm need some guinea pig loving. So, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh, by the way, there is a website. This book has a website where you could go read the prologue. So if you didn't want to, if you just wanted to check it out before purchase, go read the prologue at the website. I don't have it offhand, um,
Well,
but
Isola
yeah, I'm sure
comic.
you could find.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, let's move on to this one. Or do I want to move on to this one? No, let's do this one first. This is my offer for today that I have been reading. And have you guys ever heard of Agents of Atlas?
No, but
No.
all it's screaming at me is Doom Patrol with a gorilla. Doom
Well,
Sorry,
Patrol.
what's
well,
screaming at me is Bond villain.
well. This
If that's all
has
right.
nothing. It's nothing like Doom Patrol at all. Although you do see a character from Doom Patrol right there. Agents of Atlas was created in 2010, 2011, I think. And what Marvel did was they took a bunch of their old characters, threw them together on a team, and then put this new character, this Asian guy Wu, who's the agent. He works with the FBI in the beginning, and then he's with Shield. They put him; he's the new character. But the rest of these guys, you guys can notice from even before, you know, like Timely or so, before Marvel itself. But of course, you have the Robot Man, which they call him. M11 in here, but he's Robot Man from Doom Patrol. You have the Goddess Venus, which of
Mhm.
course we know Marvel uses all those. Here on the right hand side, you have Namora, the sister of Namor. You have
Mhm.
Marvel Boy, even though he's hard to recognize in that suit, that is Marvel Boy. And you have Gorilla Man, which this is before Marvel, I think. Gorilla Man. I can't remember where he was from, but these are a bunch of really old characters that weren't being used that Marvel tried to put together into a team, and I loved it. I love this, and I don't think I read every issue of it, but excuse me, when I was in Tokyo for the Comic Con, I went to because I couldn't buy comics at the Comic Con, which is really bizarre. I went to Akihabara in Tokyo, and there was this little teeny secret English comic book store up in there, and I bought a bunch of stuff, and I bought the complete works, the omnibus of Agents of Atlas, and I'm reading through it again right now. I was just reading it this morning, actually. And yeah, I love this book. It's so fun. It's like an old style fun book that has no nonsense whatsoever. The art is really good, and I've really enjoyed it. And they did some changes too. Marvel Boy is very different in it than he used to be, you know, way back. But anyway, I guess the question would be: Is either one of you guys ever read Agents of Atlas?
Mm-mm.
No, huh?
Not
Anybody?
at all.
Anybody in the chat? Nope. Okay. But I do suggest that go check it out. I mean, like I said, I bought the omnibus, but you could probably find these. They weren't super popular, so it's not like it's a hard thing to find, I would say, or rare. But I liked it a lot. I thought it was just good old comic book fun, you know. And these days, sometimes they get so serious, they get so political. This is nothing to do with any of that. It's just fun, and I really like the way they deal in this book, especially Venus. Venus is you know, she's a goddess, right? She's Venus, but she's so like the kind of the ditzy blonde, lost blonde. Even though she's this literal goddess, and everywhere she goes, everyone is like peaceful and wants to have sex all the time. So these guys actually have to deal with her she's more trouble than she's worth, to be honest with you. But they also Namora shines in this series. If you like Namora, that she really shines. They do a lot with her in this. But anyway, that's my offer. At Agents of Atlas. I really like it. You guys might want to check it out. Let's see here. Let's move on. Let's go to this one here. Go ahead, Denai.
Deathstroke.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm reading Deathstroke Rebirth by Christopher Priest. And it's like the great saying says, you give a great writer a shitty character, not a shitty character because he's not a shitty character, but a poor title and he'll make it great. You give a shitty writer a great title, he'll make it shitty.
Wow.
And
Ding, 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 ding.
yeah, so because I've read the New 52 Deathstroke and that was a complete mess. A complete mess. Don't waste your money on New 52 Deathstroke, but Reverse, starting with Christopher Priest, he's been not from the first issue. He just knocked it out of the ballpark, and you're hooked,
Yeah.
and you want to continue reading it. And it's all about, what makes Slate Wilson tick as Deathstroke, how his action as the world's greatest assassin and supervillain affected him and his family and those around him, and the fallouts from that. And those are what the first 5 issues are concerning about it.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's so this has been so far a great series to read, and I can't say anything bad about the Christopher Priest run right there.
Well, I think
So
the thing that catches my ear
mhm,
instantly is Christopher Priest, that
right,
and the fact that he's back working on something because we do know he's been on hiatus for a while because he wrote that big letter that I'm sure everyone has read by now, where he was basically complaining to the comic book industry, saying the only time they call me up is if they want me to do a black character. If you guys aren't aware, Christopher Priest is a black guy, and they only want to hire him to do black guys. And he says, "Hey, I can write any character," and he basically was not working in protest, saying, "No, I'm not going to come in and just do your black guy thing because you're a bunch of racists," is what he said. And but it looks like DC, learned their lesson and said, "Mr. Priest, you're a great writer. Could you please come in and do Deathstroke?" And he said, "Sure." So awesome. But that's the interesting. Christopher Priest is a good writer, but I really enjoyed the honesty that came out of him with that. He literally wasn't making comics because he was in protest against what he considered their racism, and of course it is racism. That's
right,
very interesting.
casual racism,
Well,
but
that's what it
yeah.
is. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. What about you, Todd? Are you interested in or are you reading this?
I used to read this book. I haven't quite caught up to Christopher Priest's run, but I really like Deathstroke as far as the run that has actually gone on from the beginning, since the rebirth. It's always been drawn by a good artist, and it's always been well written. There was even some really cool moments in there, uh, where Lee Weeks was. I think he drew a couple pages or something like that. It's really good.
Cool. All right. Deathstroke sounds like one we should check out. Let's
Yeah.
go on here to the next one here. Let's go down to this one here. Now, Todd, you were saying you're really enjoying this, but so tell us about this, please.
Well, the book is really good. This is sort of like a James Bond is tracking a smuggler
Uh-huh.
in Singapore, and in Singapore he runs into Oddjob, and Oddjob was the character in the movie played by a wrestler, I forget, who had a hat he
Yeah,
could
Razor
throw.
Hat. Yeah, yeah, Razor Hat. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so he runs into Oddjob again. And of course, there's a big fight and stuff. But for him, they might actually have to work. This is that old trope where, oh my God, we're enemies, but we might have to work together
Oh,
in
I
the
see. Yeah. This is
yeah.
James Bond 007, by the way, from Dynamite. Just so you know.
Yeah, the writing's really good. The art is awesome. If you're a follower of Mark Lamming on Twitter or Facebook, he's always showing sort of the breakdowns and then the inks. He breaks down in sort of red, like a lot of digital artists do, because it's easier on the eyes than the blue, because the blue is sort of a dynamic color. Easier on paper, but not easier when something's backlit. So he shows a lot of this work in bits and pieces, and it's just awesome. The black and whites are just awesome. But then you get this colorist who is absolutely horrible.
Well,
Everything has the same texture.
it is
So
ugly,
she's,
dude. I have to say it's ugly.
yeah,
Yeah.
she texturizes everything the same way, almost as if she's putting sort of a canvas underneath it. But there's a lot of color holds where she doesn't finish. Like she'll forget little bits and stuff like that. And I actually got on Dynamite and let them know. The second issue didn't come out as bad, but the first issue, I actually just went on Twitter and said, "Listen, this colors is terrible. There's all kinds of bits and pieces she forgot here." And I actually wrote, on page, this panel, go look here. There were pages where James Bond was colored. His skin tone was the same as the villain next to him, so you couldn't really tell based on which way his head was turned,
Hmm.
who was who. It was. I'm telling you, I would not complain about something, especially coloring, which I'm just passable at, if it wasn't horrific. It was absolutely horrific.
Something
The
that I took off of that, I take out of that I've been, because we talk about coloring a lot because we have you on the show, and you talk about that, and it's cool because it's something that we need to pay more attention to all the aspects of comic books, especially for us here that are doing this show. And one thing I've noticed is I've been studying and learning more about comics, and than because I thought I knew comics, but I didn't, and now I'm learning, right? And one thing I thought was very interesting, Todd, there's a lot of lady colorists. Why do you think that is? I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
well, it's obviously a job you can do from home. I think that's part of it. Sort of a, what do you call it, cottage industry kind of thing.
Sure.
It definitely has that type of appeal. Um, so you don't have to leave the house, and I think that if you have talent or a background in that, and then I'm sure not everybody does. I'm sure there are a lot of people that work in comics that just grew up wanting to do so
Hmm.
and didn't really go get the education, including myself. I'm always educating myself, but didn't get the Ringling or the Joe Kubert education
Hmm.
and sort of learn on the go. They prove they can do it. They can do it to a point, but to actually be that good where you go, oh my God, this is just, there's nothing, everything is just sort of works. It's when something doesn't work, it's noticeable, right? When everything does work, it's not noticeable, and you just sort of fly through it and everything's good. So when you look through something, and you can tell that something's wrong or something's not right about the artwork, then that's when you really are kind of taken back.
Mm.
You're taken out of the story, actually. If it's so bad, you might take you completely out of the story.
Oh, bad coloring is like a death strike, dude. It's really affects it. Impressive to me how much the coloring can affect it. And I haven't seen the book, but I'm just looking at this cover and it's horrible. Whereas we were looking at a picture from Betty Brightweiser yesterday, who's freaking amazing. And wow, I mean, the difference is striking, right? Because if you look past it and you try to get to those pencils or the inks actually, you see that there's no problem here. This is all done properly, but that color just washes it into this nothingness. So
Yeah, and there's she's using colors. Well, I'm not really sure. It does look like she colored this piece, but she uses colors that they say never use on a cover, and that's those pukey greens, which
yeah.
end up coming brown. They weren't on digitally. They weren't. That wasn't what she intended. But she doesn't have the cachet to know that when you use those colors and you use them on coated paper, this is what's going to happen. And it takes a while. I mean, trust me, I went through this with my own work. When it was delivered to me, I was like, oh, Farg, I made some mistakes here.
Yeah.
And it's a learn. There's really only one way to learn it, and that's to actually do it.
Sure.
When it comes to the color gamut aspect of it and what works and what doesn't. But as far as using sort of theory and education to color, warm to cold and things like that, that shouldn't be something that should be something by the time you're pro, you should know how to do.
Mm.
And
But you do like this book though.
oh, I do like this book, and
Yeah.
I'm a, I kind of like the book because wow, it has Mark Lamming on it, so that drew me to it. Like when I heard he was going to do 007, because Dynamite's been picking. Well, they picked Jason Masters to kick off 007, and Jason Masters is another digital artist like me using the same program, and I follow his work because he teaches me a little bit about uh, how to do certain things and how to compose a page a little bit with using some of the tricks that Clip Studio has to offer. So I jumped on James Bond with James Masters
I
or
see.
Jason Masters, but beyond that, they have picked a bunch of artists that I have no interest in. None whatsoever. I mean, they've done the origin story of James Bond, and that artist doesn't appeal to me. So this was their second artist that they've picked since they got this license to do, which I think they got it for about 10 years. This is the second guy
Mhm.
that I've been, and writer too, because Greg Pak's a decent writer. He wrote some cool Hulk stuff back in the day, maybe about 10 years ago. But that's the only thing that drew me. I didn't expect them, to get some lousy colors for their best artists.
Okay.
I told them that too. I said, you got a high profile artist coming off of a huge project who decided he would do James Bond because of the love of the character. This is like, oh my God, this is one of those feel good moments for him. And then you give him this trashy colorist who doesn't know her ass from her elbow, to be
Well,
honest.
there it is then. But I certainly agree with you, dude. Coloring is very important. I see over here in the chat, if you we got a few people in here. Just keep in mind, you guys can ask questions, interact, give your opinions. We're just talking about books that we love, that we're enjoying. We talk about a lot of things on the show, and some things we like, but a lot of times we're kind of pointing out silliness or having a laugh. That's kind of the format of what we do, right? Having some fun. But we really thought we'd do this show where we could sit and talk about the books that we are enjoying, because this is about the love of comic books in the end, isn't it? We got about
Right.
10 of you in here, so if you guys do us a favor and hit that share button. We know it's the holidays, so we're not going to get a lot of people, but if you could share this out and let your people know and get a few more people, it'd be appreciated. Also, keep in mind, just if you get a question or comment, just go ahead and chat it in here, guys. We'd love to hear from you. But let's go
Yeah.
ahead and move on to the next one here. Now, this one, I'm kind of feeling we might have all read. I know I have. This is Denali's choice, but I've read this.
Yeah.
Denali's read it. How about you, Todd? The new Kelly Sue DeConnick book.
No, but you keep hitting me over the head with it every day, so I guess I'll go read it.
This is Denali. This is Denali's choice, not mine, dude. Go ahead, Denali.
Yeah, but
Well,
you've been hitting me over the head with it.
I have.
Have you not?
Because I mentioned it
Have-
once.
Oh my goodness. Roll the tape. Roll the tape, Denali.
anyways, I really chose Aquaman because it was recommended to me to read Aquaman Rebirth. They've been doing a lot to kind of make improve Aquaman's image from the Super Friends days, where a lot of the people just know him as a corny Aquaman. Oh, he can talk to the fishes. He writes dolphins and all that, skis with dolphins and all that stuff. To being this is a super. He's reading. Being sick, I was able to read the original New 52 Aquaman, plus the Rebirth Aquaman, and I enjoyed both of them. The Jeff Johns was really good, the first 25 issues. After that, they had different writers, which wasn't as strong as the first 25 issues, but they were still solid. They had Dan Abernathy, on it for the first 41 issues. 42 was a guest writer, and 43 is Kelly Sue. with her story, which basically from the titles that's been happening with Justice League and the whole drowning that's been happening, part 1 and all that, part 2 and part 3, they kind of stripped him of all his powers, his memory. He doesn't know who he is.
Hmm.
So they pretty much gave Kelly Sue a blank slate
They did.
for her, because we all know Kelly Sue is not the type to research past things and just go on with her own thing. So they basically did that for her, which I'm not surprised. But as I mentioned before, you guys liked that issue, and there was nothing wrong with that. For that, her first issue,
No.
we always give her 3 issues, because by the third one, they always show it. They say like, we're going to give 2 or 3 good issues, and after that, it's going to be all hers.
Maybe. It's definitely possible.
Okay.
That seems to be the trend, huh? The art
Yeah.
here is really, really good, though. I do like the art.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, the art's been good. For issue 43, it was phenomenal. I hope they are able to keep that up moving forward, and that they keep this artist and they don't really skim on the side, because the artwork was spectacular. What I liked about Rebirth series is that they actually kind of challenge him as a king, because the whole thing of Rebirth, thing from the very first issues, is him trying to be the bridge between the underworld, Atlantis, and the surface world where he comes from, and the troubles that arise from both sides, trying to keep warring against each other, and him trying to be the bridge and communicate and kind of move away from the corny Aquaman, because in reality, from what I've been reading, he's really Earth Superman. Even though we call Clark Kent Superman, he's from a different world. He's from Krypton. But Aquaman, he's born here. He has the power to live submarine from the depths of the oceans, survive pressure. He's literally our Superman. And it's kind of crazy that they don't use Aquaman more often than not, except as a butt of a joke in a lot of his incarnations.
Silverfish! Ho! Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Right. And I hope moving forward, with the success of Aquaman movie, they'll start making him more serious and kind of help him build a rose gallery, because one of the faults that he has, a flaw that he has, is he doesn't have a lot of enemies, unlike Batman or the other superheroes. You only have like 3 that you can name off the top of your head, which is Black Manta, Ocean Master, which is his half brother, Orb,
Atama.
and Atama. Yeah. And outside those 3, you don't know. There's no other real villains that he actually fights. So they really need to work on giving him more villains.
That's interesting.
To go against, and they really need to focus on the kingdom, because there is a lot of lore building that they need to focus on with Atlantis and the other lost kingdoms as well, and they've touched upon it as well.
Well, to be fair, Aquaman throughout the ages, he's always pretty well written. His stories are actually quite interesting. The problem is he's in the water, and it's just people aren't interested in it. I mean, that's really what kills Aquaman, is the aqua. I mean, it is. I mean, because I've read many good Aquaman books, but I feel like I'm the only one reading them. You know what I mean? He's stuck around all this time, so they must be making at least enough money to warrant his existence. But I just think it's the water part that's killing him, and I think they really should concentrate on the Atlantis part heavy. I don't know. He's a hard character, but the Rebirth was good. 52. I did read some of that. It was good. And what they're doing here, who knows what's going to happen? I like the art. It was written well, and we'll see how it goes. But we know that Kelly Sue DeConnick is Kelly Sue DeConnick, and she can't contain her rage. She seems she can't go a day without screaming at someone about something. And I don't even know when she has time to write this because she seems to live on the Twitter. But whatever, we'll see. Because right, but
Right.
book one, good, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything you want to add to that conversation there, Todd?
No.
Yeah.
I'll
This
check
is
it
one.
out though. No,
Yeah.
no, I just have it. Just give me time.
Yeah. Well, this is a wait and see how that run goes. But it starts good. But then again, we remember like Mr. Miracle started great, ended really bad, etc. There's many examples like that. They start, Tom King, anything he's written starts good, ends up bad. It's just the way these guys are. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But
I mean,
hopefully,
you can you can consider like Rebirth ending with 41, and then 43 is kind of like a reboot
mm,
of Aquaman, so you can consider it as a new series.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, absolutely. And now this is one that I actually should be reading, and I don't know why I'm not. I'm just so busy with other stuff, I guess. But Denali, go ahead and talk to us about this one, man.
oh, this is Justice League Dark with dealing with all the magic parts because you're reading Odyssey, it's all about cosmic, and you're reading regular Justice, it's all action packed. They're dealing with the magic side and the underworld, and it's all you have Hellraiser, you have, as you can see, Man Bat, Detective Chimp, Wonder Woman, Zatanna, Swamp Thing dealing with the forces of magic
Hmm.
that other superheroes can't deal with. And it's been a pretty awesome run. I've been enjoying it greatly.
Well, that's a powerhouse team right there, going diagonally left to right, man. I mean, Swamp Thing, Zatanna, and Wonder Woman. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's been so great that it actually made me pick up Wonder Woman because they had a couple tie-ins with Wonder Woman's main issue. And I've been now picking up Wonder Woman issues from Rebirth and following through just to see how it got to that point. Because Wonder Woman title leads to the current Justice League Dark.
mm. Well, it's also nice to see Detective Chimp back and Man-Bat up there. I'm just reading through right now the completed collected works of Man-Bat, and of course that's all mostly all Chuck Dixon. So I've really been enjoying those books. If you haven't read any of the Chuck Dixon Man-Bats, I suggest you do. They're well done. Of course, Chuck always delivers. But yeah, no, this is really looks interesting. Now this is a new team here, and this is the Champions of Magic. Why don't you give us a little bit of idea what they're doing in this new book?
So basically, there's a new covenant that's kind of disrupting magic and trying to eliminate magic from or causing magic to fail all over the world.
Mm,
And that's the beginning of the mystery. I don't want to delve deeper, but the main cause is like magic all over the world is failing, and it's Wonder Woman who's leading this team and gathering all these other figures to investigate what is causing this magic to fail and why. Because there's a lot of beings that depends on magic, and when they're casting magic, it backfires on them. So it's really a serious thing happening. And she's leading of the team because the Justice Leagues are dealing with another weird disasters that's happening as well.
hmm
So they can't get involved, and Team Odyssey is up in the cosmos, so they can't get involved. So she's had to get all these people to join in and say, well, Swamp Thing, because your power is green, all life, and you're part magic as well. You can help us. Detective Chimp is immortal. He's a detective. Man Bat with his scientific, and then Santana, which you know
Or magic,
she's
yeah.
all about magic.
Well, I do have to say, I don't understand why Wonder Woman can show all that skin, but they take away the fishnets away from Zatanna. I mean, come on. I miss the fishnets. And J Pot Studio says, never understood what women see in Swamp Thing. Well, gee, I didn't know women were fans of it. But cool. I like Swamp Thing too.
The
Uh,
whole 70s Swamp Thing.
yeah, well, that was a good run, man. That I enjoyed that a lot. Um,
Right.
and Bill from Argos Creation says, is this version of JL Dark a DC Metal spinoff? Ooh, good question.
No,
No.
no, it's not a Dark Metal spinoff, but because Justice League Dark was before Dark Metal, but the first run kind of led to Dark Metal. And then this is kind of like the just before Dark Metal happens
I
from the
see.
timeline.
I see. So
Mhm.
maybe it'll have a tie-in to that, huh?
Could be, yeah,
At the end, yeah. Well, it's
at the end.
interesting for me because I don't really like Wonder Woman comic by herself. They're kind of boring. But when Wonder Woman is part of a team, I like her. So I'm gonna have to check this out. Todd, have you read this or are interested at all?
I have not read it. I didn't realize this is quite the eclectic group of
It
characters.
is.
So that part interests me. Because these are all, I mean, how do you write these characters together and how do you make it make sense? That's the key. And if that does make sense, like how do we put these characters together? Then I'll buy into whatever they go through. But if that part doesn't make any sense, then it'll lose you right off the bat, you know?
Then I'll spoil it for you. Yes, it does make sense.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Well, he did say he liked it, so you would think it well written, you know. But
Yeah,
No, no, right. You could have something that's well written, but this is a weird group of characters.
it
So if
is.
they come together, at the bus stop, that's not a possibility, right? But if
No.
there's a good way that they come together, then it makes everything that happens after that event of things believable. Because you have villains here and heroes, and you have iconic. You have a mix.
You do.
right.
And Ray Thulu says Swampy was good enough for Adrian Barbeau and Heather Locklear. Yes, indeed. The original movie is hokey as hell, but it's a lot of fun. And Model 316 says, good evening. Well, good evening to you, sir. We're always happy to have you in here, Model 3. But yeah, I'm going to check this out because it's a theme I like, and it's just so interesting. What a collection of characters! It's not what I would expect to be put together. I got to read this one, definitely.
Yeah, that's what drew my eyes. Like, how did this team up happen? And when I read it, it made sense. It made sense why Wonder Woman's the leader of this team. It makes sense why they're all in there. And you're kind of hooked on seeing what's going on. And the art's phenomenal. I'm just going to say that. They didn't skimp on that title.
All right, and then the next one we have, and probably our last one for today,
Yeah.
is Hawkman. Now, um, Hawkman is interesting to me, Danelli, because I think he looks cool. I liked him and his wife, I guess it is, in the TV shows and the animated. I like it, but I've never, ever in my whole life read a Hawkman comic book. And I don't know why. I just never have. But tell us about this one. What's going on with Hawkman currently?
Well, a new series happened for this year. So there's like about 6, 7 issues of Hawkman that's going on, and he's dealing with this mystery that he has to find out that concerns with his reincarnation, and he's investigating. He's looking at old ruins, being an investigator to find out, because if he doesn't find out what's going on, it's going to affect the future of the world, which will be like turned into an apocalypse. So he's trying to remember what he did in his past life to protect the future. So, and he's going all over the world trying to figure this out. So it's kind of like Indiana Jones doing some anthropologies and kind of things that you would be interested in, Chester. So I'm surprised you're not reading this.
Yeah, no, I do like those kind of things. I know I'm going to check it out. I am because I when I was sitting here setting up for today's show and I was getting this image for you, I realized I've never read a Hawkman comic book. I never have, and I don't know why. So I have to fix that. I got to go read Hawkman. I've seen Hawkman in other books like Justice League or something like that, but I've never actually read a Hawkman comic. So I'm going
There's
to rectify
well,
that.
there's a reason you probably haven't, because it comes with a lot of baggage. The whole idea of Hawkman always having to uh, like it's well, for instance, okay, look, he's a bird, but there's this underlying thing where he's like a phoenix. He's always dying and being reborn
That's true.
and having to sort of deal with the baggage of the last time, or finding his love who's out there somewhere. It's like this Shakespearean baggage that he carries. It's just weird to me that they've always dragged this character down with this whole idea.
Yeah. Well, it is the star-crossed lover, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They're like kind of like the moon and sun. They meet like once, and then they separate again. But the stories that they've been showing for this run to know what's going on with this incarnation of Hawkman
Hmm.
and what he's doing, and not drag you down with the baggage.
Now, quick
You know.
question in regards to this new series you're talking about. Now, I read DC Metal, and Hawkman played a pretty big part in that, actually. And they laid out some interesting information. They gave away a couple little secrets, maybe. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm not going to get into how they used him, but Hawkman was quite prevalent in that series, and it was a really good series until the ending, which was absolute nonsense. I don't know why they can't end a series, but overall, I
Right.
liked Metal. So does this tie in directly to what had happened in Metal? Because that would help me
Uh, a,
understand.
yeah, it's a little bit tie in with Metal. It's the series falls after Metal, but it gives you enough leeway where if you haven't read Metal, you don't really need to read Metal. But if you read Metal, it'll add more to the story,
I see.
kind of deal. Yeah.
Well, Model 3 says that I love Honkman. Now, I'm assuming he didn't misspell that. Uh, okay. All right. So this what we did today was very different. I'm going to have to create like an intro, and I'll have to do all the back work that needs to be done for a new show. And next week we'll have this more professionally thrown at you. But I don't know. What do you think, Todd? Do you like this format?
Yeah, no, I do. And I think we can improve upon it, because I really didn't know coming in that's what we were going to do. But it's something we've always, I've talked
Hmm.
about and you've
Hmm.
talked about. It goes along with sort of I always mention my masterclass uh, books, and we're actually going to have two of those guests coming up, two huge guests.
Yep.
So this kind of goes along with trying to drive the consumer towards good product, and not to completely abandon anybody by a company name. You know what I mean? There's no, not every one of their books is being written by an SJW.
No.
Grant Morrison is the last person you'll ever would associate with SJW. So the idea of steering people towards quality, and it may be opinion based, but the idea of that, and you willing to go outside your box, because this is your pocketbook, right? That we're dealing with, whether you want to spend this money or not. um, we're trying to show you something more than what you would normally would do. Some of these books, you might walk into the local comic shop and they're not even there. They may only order just enough to pull. So you might need to try some of these books digitally, and then tell your local comic book shop, like, hey, I really want to stay with this. I like it now, and I'll let you know when I don't like it. So, because these aren't, some of these books, like Isola, is not a wide distribution book that's going to be sitting on a shelf. That your store's only going to order two extra more than their pull list, probably.
Hmm.
Um, so this is a good way to introduce you to something that you may not normally get introduced to. Um, And sometimes you might just, because what can you pick up when you're in a comic book store and you pick up a book because it looks interesting? Is that enough for you? Do you need to be told a little bit about what's going on inside of it? What's the gist of the story? And hopefully we can do that for you and
Yeah.
drive you towards some quality books.
Absolutely, and the initial statement you made is a very important one. That we focus on a lot of the quote unquote SJW books because those are the ones that are so fun to mock and pick on, in a jovial way. We're not being
Right.
mean, particularly any of them, except for maybe Mark Wade. He is pretty despicable, but we're just having a good fun jab at the silliness, right? But
Right.
the truth is that Marvel and DC do have a lot of good books. It's not all bad, and this is something that needs to be pointed out. So we'll do this. We'll make this sharper and try to make the production value a little bit better, and we'll put this out to you next week. I think it's a fun idea. But Denali is the one that really pushed to have this show on, and although we all mentioned it, Denali's really the one that wanted it. Good idea, man. Thanks.
No problem. Now, sometimes we just have to talk what we love and kind of share it because that's how dialogues will happen, and
Hmm.
hopefully as we continue on with this series, at least which is every Sunday, hopefully we'll get more people to talk about it. And you talk about the previews on Wednesdays, and new comic comes out Wednesday, so it will
Yep,
be great to talk about Sunday and have that synergy going on and say,
that's true.
hey,
That's true.
let me talk about this. And hopefully it'll encourage people on the chat, or to tell us during the chat while we're doing the show, or Twitter us or Facebook us, and start recommending and say, hey, this is a book that I found interesting because of these things. Maybe check it out and see. And if you do, we may be interested as well, and check it out and talk about it on this show as well.
Yeah.
Or you come on here and you hit us with it that way.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
We're not
Actually,
opposed to that, right?
no, actually this is one of the better shows for a fan to come on actually. If you Cuz we're a lot of, we're all comic book fans, we're all reading comics. So and maybe covering the news and that kind of stuff might be a little intimidating, but coming on and talking about a book you're reading, that's easy. So if you're a fan out here and you're part of our crew over there in the chat and you want to come up here and talk about a comic book on Sunday, do so. Definitely get in touch with me. My links are down below, Facebook and Twitter. Just tell me, hey, I want to be on that comics we love show, which I have to come up with an idea for it, but it'll probably be something like that.
No, and you know what? There's people that are missing here right now who read a lot of comics too, and if they were here,
Yeah.
um, this would have went, superbly. So I think this is a great idea because Booster reads a lot of comics,
Yes, he
and
does. Yeah.
so we need our crew here to actually put this show on the map. This will be a
Yeah,
good show.
absolutely. And I also I'm talking about the crew in the chat because these are,
Right,
we're
right,
all fans
absolutely.
here, right? So
right.
we're just enjoying our fandom. But just real quick, Argos Creation says Brian Hitch is drawing some of his best work in this series. Amazing art. He's talking about Hawkman.
Yeah,
Yeah. So cool.
he's writing it too, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow. All right, guys. Well, we're at the top of the hour, though, so we don't want to drag it over too much. We do appreciate all of you coming here as usual. Hit that like button or subscribe if you haven't. Definitely support and help us out. Definitely get in touch with me through those links down below to get on this show. Because we are talking about comics, and I know you're reading comics. And just come on, this show is all about the love of comic books. It has nothing to do with angsty or angry or joking or goofing or whatever. It's just about the love of comic books, and I think it's a great idea, and it's perfect for a weekend show, I think. So definitely get in touch with us. Thank you for coming. We will check you out this week. Just keep in mind that we are reading Guardians of the Galaxy #2, the original run, and we're going to be looking at the Guardians, it's an interesting choice that we'll have had, but yeah, go give it a read, and maybe we'll learn something together. But other than that, Denali, take us out, man.
Sure. And just to answer Argos Creation, which it says this will be current comics sections. So I mean, yes and no. Yes, where I'll be pulling from my pull list and kind of telling you guys, sure, like alternative. I have a whole ton of alternative comics that I want to talk about, and point you guys to as well if you guys haven't read it for $1.50 issue. These are and these are miniseries. It'd be something to talk about.
Mhm.
We'll see what the other guys are reading that maybe as newer as to some of the titles I'll be asking about, but there's things that they love that maybe we didn't check out in the past,
Yeah,
and we want you guys to know about it
sure.
as well.
I did it today. My Agents of Atlas is a decade-old book.
Right. So we're gonna move forward from this, and we'll calibrate as needed, but this is going to be just pure fandom right here. This is a
Mhm.
pure fan show for us, for you guys, and hopefully everybody has fun. But as
Oh,
always, your perception shapes your reality. So always make it a good one.
namaste. Later, guys.
Thanks, guy.
Later.
Aloha.